I'll come back to that when I return. But what I want to share with you this morning really comes from my own experience. Back when I first went into the ministry, my wife and I were married in Wyoming because she was from Wyoming. We took our honeymoon in the Rocky Mountain National Park. I was 19, she was 23. And by the way, today, she's 63. It's her birthday today. And June 6th will be our 40th anniversary. So guess where we're going? Looks like we're going back to Wyoming and maybe a few other states. But we left the Rocky Mountain National Park and then drove to central Pennsylvania, where we had a little church waiting on us, where we would pastor there for 6.5 years. And somewhere toward the end of that time, I'm not sure what all happened. I had some physical issues and some issues that caused me stress, not so much with the church, but just I got maybe overextended and kind of run down, and then it seemed like my world collapsed. Physically, emotionally, I was just drained. And I can recall during that time, my wife and I were traveling back from the state of Ohio, back to our home in Pennsylvania, and I was particularly troubled during that time and was experiencing some real difficulties. And the Lord brought Philippians chapter 4 to my mind while we were traveling. My wife was driving and I was laying down, just not feeling good at all. And I started looking at Philippians chapter 4, and I recognized that it was filled with ways for you and I to experience peace in the middle of our storm. There were at least 5 precepts, and what I mean by precepts is a command. There are 5 commands here, every one of which produce a calming effect. It's what I call a peace-producing precept, that if you will obey it, if you'll act on it, it will produce peace in your life. And then the chapter ends with 2 promises that if you believe, they too will produce peace in your life. Now, we all share the common lot of sorrow and problems and difficulties and concerns. And you know there's a very fine line between having a concern and letting it turn into a worry that Scripture tells us we don't need to engage in, or to have a spirit of worry. It's interesting that the Bible says some very strikingly, some passages strike you almost as if you are going to be an irresponsible person if you listen to it. Jesus said, take no thought for your life. And the word there means take no anxious thought for your life. What? You mean I'm never to have an anxious thought? Well, you can have as many as you want. It's just that Jesus said you don't need to. D.L. Moody said you can go to heaven 2 ways, first class or second class. He said, second class is what time I am afraid I will trust in you. That's second class. You have fear, so therefore you trust. But he said first class is I will trust and not be afraid. So how is it that we want to go to heaven? Well, I want to be in first class as much as possible. I want to trust and not be afraid rather than what time I'm afraid I'll trust. But you know what? You can get to heaven both ways. The key there is to turn worry and fear into prayer and therefore into something that will produce peace in your life in the middle of storms. We've had a very troublesome year, haven't we, 2020? And 2021 doesn't look like maybe it's going to be that much better. I mean, we might be able to get around a little more, but we all have personal issues in our life that can rob us of peace. Every one of us. I come around and talk to you, and you can give me a half a dozen things in your life. I know that because you're a human being, and you're in the human situation that all of us share. My sister was texting me this morning about my mother, who is getting to the end of life, and I go see her as much as I can, and she's trying to help, and we've hired somebody to come in, but every time I go there and see my mother, who was always filled with joy and activity and whatever, and now she just lays over on her left side and on the couch day and night, can get up for a little bit and then right back down. I've never seen my mother like that. I've never seen, or we've never been in many of the situations we're in right now. Each one of us are always experiencing something new that can rob us of peace. So peace can be a very elusive thing, can it not? Okay, we're going backwards here. So in Philippians chapter 4, and I'm not going to read through the whole passage, I'm going to draw, though, from 7 different verses that are in this chapter. And so there it is. And what we want to do is focus on verse 7, which says, "The peace of God that passes all understanding will keep your heart and your mind." And we need both of them kept. You know, there's something deep within us we might call our heart. Then there's kind of the mind that can play through all kinds of scenarios and create a lot of turmoil, you know, and then it kind of leaks down into the heart and we're just a troubled person. So the peace of God is intended to keep us. The peace of God will keep you, keep your heart and your mind in a state of rest and calmness. If you think about suffering, we often suffer more from the lack of peace that we have in our situations than from actually the situation. You think about it. Often, you know, if you could be injected with peace and tranquility, no matter what happened, 50 to 80% of your suffering would go away in every situation. You think about it. It's actually your heart and your mind that gets troubled in a situation. And the situation may be bad, may be desperate even. You know, I fly a lot. I have to. I used to like to fly. Now I loathe flying, basically, unless I have an interesting person to talk to. But I usually get in a plane and I want to get there. And when you fly 12 hours to Israel or 5-6 hours to England and stop and stay a day or two and then go the additional 6, I just want it to be over. I'm like a little kid. Are we there yet? Speed this thing up if you can. It's already going 600, but I want to go 6,000. I want to be there in an hour or so. But you know, when I'm flying, sometimes I think, what if the pilot came on and said, folks, we just ran out of fuel and we're thousands of miles away from any help. We weren't checking our gauges very well. Or they forgot to fuel us up. And now here we are over the Atlantic, and I'm sorry to say we're going to go in. And your life's over here in about 10 minutes. You know, how would that strike us? I think, you know, as I'm on my way down, knowing I'm going to my death in 10 minutes, what if God could just give me such a spirit of peace that would come over me, that would be supernatural, that I wouldn't have any fear? I was just like, hallelujah, I'm going to be in heaven in 10 minutes. And just stay like that. And then I could turn to the people around me and help them get ready for what's coming in 10 minutes. It seems to me that that's the way it should be for a believer, shouldn't it? I think it should be. I'm not condemning you or me if there's a little less than that going on, you know what I mean, where there's some worry or fear. But Jesus did say, now think of this, in John chapter 14, he's just a few hours from being betrayed, crucified, and dead. Just a few hours. And he turns to his disciples, and instead of them comforting him, he's comforting them. He's saying, look, peace I leave you, my peace I give you. Wow. He's the one giving his peace away on the eve of his own betrayal. You know, the tormenting blows that he was going to take, and eventually his own crucifixion. Yes, that's what's happening. He goes on to say, do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. If anybody could have been troubled, if anybody could have had fear, it would have been him that night. They were all going to come out of that pretty well, but not him. But he's the one saying, I've got peace to give you. You don't need to be afraid. You don't need to be troubled. Amazing. Philippians 4 contains, as I said, 5 peace-producing precepts. Do your best to obey them. Even if you leave here today and you say, I'm going to put one of these in practice in my life, and then build on that until every day you're practicing these 5 precepts and then believing the 2 promises that come at the end. So let's look at the first one. In verse 2, Paul said to 2 ladies in the church, Euodia and Syntyche, he said, I plead with you 2 ladies to be of the same mind in the Lord. In other words, get along. Now notice he said of the same mind in the Lord. Okay, there's limits to who you can get along with or think or have the same mind, right? I'm sorry, I can't bring my mind to accept abortion on demand. I can't bring my mind to accept the ordination of practicing homosexuals. I can't embrace Scripture and have that mind, okay? I can't bring myself to believing in the ordination of practicing adulterers. There's a lot of sin that eliminates people from certain things. And if I'm going to embrace that, I might as well just throw out Scripture. The Bible gives us a list of the sins of the flesh. So I can't get along in the sense that I have to believe in the rightness of what is clearly spelled out as wrong in Scripture. That's not what Paul's talking about. These 2 women had a probably minor dispute in the church. Maybe they were replacing the carpet and one wanted green and the other wanted blue, and blue won out. All right, so he's saying, please, do your best to get along with people. Now, do you understand how that produces peace? Have you ever had a severe conflict with somebody? Later on, you look back and the matter wasn't even all that big, but you had a conflict and you allowed it to fester. Do you think that produces peace? It produces exactly the opposite. Some things are worth just letting go, right? Vance Havner said a dog can whip a skunk any day, but it's not worth it. You know, some arguments aren't worth winning. You come away with a V, you think, but really you come away smelling bad. Oswald Chambers said this. He said, avoid controversy as you would the very gates of hell. Boy, that's a strong statement. And Paul said in another place, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. In other words, on your part, make peace possible. Now, some people won't be at peace no matter what you do. We understand that. That's why Paul said, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. So if you're going to have the peace of God rule in your heart, you're going to have to get along with people as best you can. That's precept number 1. Precept number 2, verse 4. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say, rejoice. Isn't that interesting? Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say, rejoice. Now, this is not a command to feel a certain way, but to behave in a certain way. You can't always feel joy. You know that sign that was going around a few years ago? Don't worry, be happy. And then we heard that the man who gave us that slogan committed suicide. I don't know if that's true or not, but I heard that. This isn't just some shallow feeling that you have. You can get that from a bottle of alcohol, or some drugs, or some kind of wild sexual escapade that's wrong, but temporarily you feel this or that. We're not talking about surface kind of emotions here. We're talking about a deliberate choice to rejoice. But notice what the source of our joy is. You see, this verse contains the source of our joy. It's not that you just won the lottery. It's not that you just got a pay increase. It's not that your wife told you you're handsome. The source of your joy is the Lord, and He never changes. So hence, no matter how life changes, if your joy is in the Lord, you can stay filled with joy. He also gave us the season that you should rejoice. It's every season. It's 4 seasons out of the year. Always. Always. That means right now. Are you rejoicing right now? I know a bad sermon can make you feel bad, but remember the source of joy. And hopefully this isn't a bad one, but you know what I'm saying. No matter what's happening out here, we always have something good going on here. So hence we can rejoice evermore. And then he said, and then you have the stress of that verse. Notice the source in the Lord, the season always, and then the stress. He said, and again I say to you, rejoice. When your parent calls your name twice, you know you better respond. And when the Lord says something to you and then He repeats it right away again, you'd better listen. Rejoice in the Lord always and again. I'm stressing this, the apostle says. Rejoice. The Bible often links joy and peace together. It's hard to be at peace when you're down in the mouth and when you're always, negative and always kind of the opposite of being joyful. Also, I want to say this, that we need to be careful not to tie our joy to anything external, not even religious matters. When the disciples came back, remember Jesus sent out 70 disciples in Luke chapter 10. He gave them power to cast out demons, to heal people, to work all kinds of things. When they came back, it says they were like rejoicing. And they said to Jesus, even the demons are subject to us through your name. And you know what Jesus said? Something very interesting. He said, you know what? I don't want you to rejoice because the demons are subject to you, but because your names are written in the book of life. In other words, that's never going to change. If you're walking with God, your name will be there. And you can rejoice in the fact that you belong. You're children of God. Your names are in the Lamb's book of life. But when you go out here and do ministry, sometimes it's going to be successful and sometimes it's not going to feel so successful. So even in religious matters, don't make that your joy. If your church grows, great. Thank God for it. But is your name in the Lamb's book of life? That you can make a source of continual joy. All right, let's move on. Number 3, don't worry. In verse 6, do not be anxious about anything. How many of you violated that this week? Just be honest and raise your hand. Okay, I think I'm right up there with you. I think there were a couple things I was anxious about temporarily this week, but I didn't need to be. Did it ever occur to you? I hope it has occurred to me. Well, I think so. That I can be worried, but because Christ told me I don't need to worry, I really have no reason to. I can go ahead and worry, but I don't need to. What Paul says is that when you worry or when you're anxious, he said, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. In other words, Paul's just simply saying, Worry will destroy your peace, but prayer brings peace. Because the very next verse, he said, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will keep your heart and mind. Worry is antithetical to peace, but prayer is antithetical to worry. So if you feel the temptation to worry, what does he say? He said, well, be thankful for what God's already done, but then let your request, your concern, be made known to God. You say God already knows it. Yeah, but he needs you to remind him about it. He wants you to be a part of this process. He wants you. You need to feel the peace that comes through praying and petitioning God and giving your requests to him. Why should I not worry and instead pray? Because my worry never has the power to change anything. It can only drain me. But prayer puts me in touch with a God who can do whatever is necessary in my situation. That's why worry is really a foolish expenditure of energy. Use your energy to pray. Talk out your heart to God. Give him the burdens. And if the worry comes back an hour later, talk to him again about it. If it comes back tomorrow, talk to him again. Just keep it before God. And remember, he's got your situation covered. There's nothing surprising him in your current situation. He's got you. He knows how to take care of you. Not just you, but your loved ones, your friends, your family, others that you're concerned about. He's got you. Determine, my friends, determine to turn every occasion of worry into an occasion for prayer. I was in Mexico 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago we flew. I took very good friends of mine from the college. Their son and daughter-in-law work in southern Mexico. This guy's done a lot for me in editing, so I owed him a trip to Mexico. I took him and his wife. They've been here, Daryl and Marilyn Muir. So we go to Chicago, we fly to Mexico City where we're going to overnight. We walk off the plane into the airport. It's 9:30 at night. We get into a 90-minute line at passport control. I could not believe, never been anything like that in all of my travels. When we finally got through an hour and a half, and it's about 10:30, 11 o'clock, Marilyn looks for her passport and can't find it. She dropped it somewhere on the plane, coming off, we don't know. I had already gone through. I'm on the other side, I can't come back. Daryl and I are texting. They take her and Daryl and put them in a room and say, if you can't find your passport, you have to fly home. We've been planning this trip for a long time. I'm sitting over at the hotel just sick as a dog. I just can't believe this. It's like, Lord, I didn't want to be in Mexico. I was just here in December. I didn't want to be here without my friends. This trip was more about them than anything. And there I am. And at one point, I just looked up to God and I said, God, I can't do a single thing about this. Only you can help us out of this situation. Now, it's not a life-threatening situation, I understand, but it was a huge disappointment, both to me and especially to them. And Marilyn's feeling terrible. How was I so that feeling. Guess what? About an hour and a half into sitting in that room, somebody walked in and somebody decided to try something. They went out they sent word to the airplane. The airplane had already moved from the gate and was taken somewhere else to be cleaned. We don't know who, how, or what happened. But about an hour and a half later, somebody walked in with her passport. We have no idea where they found it even. Next morning, we were on the flight to southern Mexico. Now, it was very hard laying in my bed that night, going to sleep. I was worried. I was sick. But you know what? Daryl and Marilyn were praying in that room. I was praying in the hotel. And I just desperately said, God, please, if you don't mind, help us out of this. And it happened. On the way home, we flew from Mexico City to Guadalajara. We had our COVID test, the negative, COVID test with us on our phone, documents. But somehow my Visa card they give you when you come in that you need to get out was gone. I would find it when I was home, buried in my suitcase. One of my, I don't even recall putting it there. I would have put it in my backpack. It's where I keep all my documents. I would find it, but believe me, we couldn't get on the plane again. And I don't even have time to tell you in 20, 30 minutes what we went through. We all three got separated at one point, trying everything we could do to go downstairs, and they kept sending us the very long, well, the one person sent us a very long way. We finally got there. But when I got there, I told that guy what I was missing. And he said, well, they usually charge $40. I'm not charging you anything here. And I ran. I ran one way, but I had sent Daryl back to fly with his wife another way. But then he didn't have what he needed from me to get through. It turned into a nightmare. But by the time we got there, the plane, everybody was gone. Marilyn was standing there. Daryl and I came up, and about 3 of the attendees there were trying to help us. We had to fill out more paperwork quick. And needless to say, I was the last one to step onto that plane, and the door shut behind me. And once again, we were okay. But when I was running around, feeling I was about to have a heart attack, and recognized I need to lose 30 pounds really bad. And by the way, I started. Ask me how much I've lost the next time I'm back. I got to lose 25 to 30 pounds before I start tour guiding in the fall. I have bone on bone in one of my knees. There's no reason to lug around an extra 25 to 30 pounds. So ask me, keep me accountable. But here's the good thing. Even while I was running around, once again I was saying, God, if we get on that plane, you're going to have to help us. And we were on the plane. So the Lord knows how to help us with difficulty. It doesn't always turn out great like that. Sometimes I've gotten held up in some city, I couldn't make a flight, and had a good experience there. So even if we wouldn't have made it, Guadalajara, here we are for another day or two. When you have worry, turn it into prayer. Number 4, Paul said, think positive. Brothers and sisters, whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think on these things. Yeah, think on these things. Think on wholesome things, positive things. You know what? The battleground is right up here. There's a big battle. This is a battlefield up here. And God will help us, if we ask Him, to take control of what we let go through here. You know the saying, we can't help the birds flying over our head, but we can keep them from building a nest in our hair. They don't have much nesting anymore at the top of my head. But, we can chase away the thoughts with God's help. You've heard about mind control? Well, this is the good kind. This is God helping us control our thoughts and think positively. That might mean you have to turn the news off. My wife has never really worried or even thought too much about national stuff. But this last year, it's all scared her. The virus, not just the virus, but the way the elections turned out. And she thinks the country's going the wrong direction. And there's a lot of stuff. And a lot of people do. I understand that. But then there were a lot of people that worried 4 years before that we were going to have a nuclear war with Donald Trump, And he's basically the only president that didn't get us into a war. So it didn't quite work out. And that's the way worries are. They often don't turn out the way we imagine them to. Seriously. While we're on this subject of worry, let me read you something very quickly here. Somebody said we worry about the implications of the past and the possibilities of the future. We worry over our past failures. We worry that the future won't be different. We worry over our health and the health of our loved ones. We worry about our finances and the finances of our loved ones. We worry that we won't be able to retire and we worry that the day will come when we won't be able to work. We worry that we have a hospital close enough to us, and then we worry that we might have to use it. Some people worry over being single, others worried over getting married. Some people worry about being in a large crowd, others worry about being alone. We worry that we might not be able to have children, and then we worry that we have them. We worry about the world of our grandchildren, what world they'll be born into. Together, we worry about the economy, jobs, inflation, social security, education, crime, terrorism, global warming, immigration, moral and spiritual decline, the national deficit, and war. One woman said she's worried that peanut butter comes from peanuts, corn oil comes from corn, and she wants to know where baby oil comes from. Another man said, my wife's been worrying all her life about an intruder breaking into the house. So one night, he heard one breaking in downstairs. And he walked down and greeted the intruder and said, hey, he said, my wife's been waiting for you for 10 years. Could you come upstairs and meet her? It's mind control, right? Think on these things. Maybe you need a week where you just focus on good things. And that might mean that you can't really pay much attention to the news because they focus on the negative. They don't say, hey, we've got a whole hour of good, great things that we're going to tell you about what's happening in our world and in America and in your neighborhood. The facts are, a lot of good things are happening. They just don't get coverage. A lot of good things. So sometimes we need a break from that. We really do. Well, here's the fifth one and the last one that is a precept. Paul said, I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I have learned in whatever state I am, Paul says, to be content. And even though the precept isn't here, it's implied. And in another place, he said, having food and raiment, let us be content. Contentment should start whenever you have food and raiment. That's its beginning point, okay? That's where you should start. If you don't have food, then I understand you're discontent. If you don't have raiment, and the Greek word for raiment is coverings, meaning something covering your body, and probably something covering your head at night. So are you in an apartment or a house? A trailer? A tent? Do you have clothes on today? And did you have something to eat? Or can you get something to eat today? Paul said, right there is all you need to be a contented person. The rich man is the man who's figured out just how many things he can live without. Isn't that liberating? It really is. So let's just reiterate these real quick. What's the first one? How are you going to experience the peace of God? You must get along. Number 2, be joyful. 3, don't worry, but pray. 4, keep your mind focused on good things, positive things. 5, be content. You can't be peaceful if you're not contented. All right, now, those are the things that you do to have peace. Also, let me throw this in. If you get down in the mouth, just start thinking about your blessings, okay? Did you drive here in a car? Thank God for it. Do you have a home? Yes. Do you have a spouse? Yes. Do you have children? Yes. If you don't have a spouse, do you have the hope of one for the younger people? You see, you can just, I tell you what, they start piling up. Count your blessings shouldn't just be in a November practice, right? It should be a year-round one. Count your blessing. That will help you be content. The Stoics, ancient Greek philosophers from Athens, you know what they taught? They taught that you can practice contentment by negative visualization. You say, what? Yeah, negative visualization can lead to contentment. What they meant by, just imagine that when you get up in the morning and walk out to the driveway, all 4 tires of your car they've been slit. Somebody came and cut the tires. So when you go out and find that they're not, you'll be happy. Imagine what can happen to you if you're riding a motorcycle. See, I used to ride a motorcycle a lot. You know what will help me to be careful? Imagining my body wrapped around that telephone pole that I'm passing. You know, some negative visualization can produce a lot of good things. Contentment's one of them. I could go on here, but let's hurry. Let's finish with the two promises. Here are the two promises that you need to believe if you're going to have peace in your heart. The first promise has to do with how I'm going to get this or that done, how I'm going to perform. That brings a lot of kind of trouble to the human spirit. I have to perform at work. I have to preach a sermon. I have to deal with this or deal with that. I have to accomplish this or that. Listen, I can do all things through Him who gives me strength. So I need to believe that, and that will calm my nerves. That'll settle my spirit. Anytime you're up against a challenging situation, you need to claim this, and you need to believe it. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. It's not just about what you can do. It is really about what God can do through us when we're yielded to Him. I can do all things that I need to do. This isn't like open-ended. I can create a universe. Or, you know, he's talking about all the things that are necessary for us to get done. The things that we need to do, the things that God's calling us to do. If He's calling me, He'll enable me to do it. I have a 23-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old daughter. And sometimes they have some introspection going on, and they're worried about themselves. I'm not enough of this, or I'm not that, or I'm not something else. And sometimes I have to sit them down and say, you know what? You're enough of everything God wants you to be if you're following Him. And He'll give you strength. He'll give you exactly what what you need if you'll look to Him. And then last of all, we can worry about our needs not being met. We're needy people. We need food, we need oxygen, we need water, we need friends, we need a place to be, we need to pay our bills. We're needy people. And then God comes along and says, I'll provide for you. My God will meet all your needs according to the riches of His glory. Not according to your riches, they run out pretty quick. But His will never run out. And that's the storehouse that we're drawing from. What He can do. So you see, I may worry about my performance. He promises to strengthen me. I may worry about my needs. But He promises to provide for them. Every need I have. Now, can you see that all of this points back to verse 8, where this peace, Paul said, will keep our hearts and minds. The peace of God, it's the peace that God has for us. It's the peace that Jesus said, I'll give to you. You have to reach out and take it. You have your part by following those 5 precepts the best you can do, and to keep recalling them and bringing yourself back to them, and then believing that He'll come through with strength and with the fulfillment of our needs, the meeting of our needs. To trust that, and He'll never fail. I could stand here and talk to you the rest of the day, right over your wonderful lunch you've planned. But I won't. About the provision of God's grace and help, and even material help where it was needed. Thank God. Brother Mark. All right, let's pray a word. Heavenly Father, we're so thankful that we have a God that we can trust. Help us to get along with one another. Help us to rejoice. Help us, instead of worrying, help us to pray. Help us to think positively. Help us to practice contentment, and help us to believe that You'll strengthen us and provide for us in every situation. Lord, fill us with the peace that Jesus promised his disciples on the eve of his own crucifixion and death. Help us through life and right to the end of life to be filled with the tranquility of heaven, the peace of God. I pray this for everyone sitting here today, in Christ's name. And God's people said, Amen.